What happens when two bass road warriors spend quality time talking music and life with one of their peers? Bassist, educator, author David C. Gross and bassist and head honcho of KnowYourBassPlayer.com, Tom Semioli, trade dates with the legends of rock, jazz, funk, blues, folk, country, and more. Notes from an artist, revealing conversations with the legends who've created the soundtrack of our lives. What happens? You're about to find out. It's another episode of Notes from an Artist.
So, David, what happens when three bass players in three different parts of the world walk into a Zoom meeting?
It's all cacophony.
It's all cacophony. You know, David, every now and then we do like to bloviate with one of our own, and one of our own is the revered British session bassist, collaborator, sideman, author, stand-up comic, and all-around Rockonteur, Guy Pratt. Now, you may not recognize that name, but you know his work with Robert Palmer, Brian Ferry, Madonna. You remember Madonna Ciccone?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. David Gilmour, Nick Mason, Pink Floyd, many others. And speaking of Rockonteurs, David, that's the name of Guy's fabulous podcast with Gary Kemp of Spandau Ballet fame. And I encourage our listener to check out Rockonteurs wherever podcasts are potted. Notes from an Artist and Rockonteurs are simpatico. Wouldn't you say so, David?
Yes, I would. And you know, one of the questions I forgot to ask.
What was that?
Where did they come up with the name Rockonteurs? Now, obviously, if we separate the three words, rock on tours, which is a clever way to do it. However, I wonder where they picked up that.
That's right, and I would my educated guess is that maybe Guy came up with that because they were on tour with Nick Mason, and they came up. But that's a very clever name. We have to ask who's responsible for that, Guy, Gary, or Nick Mason, or one of the roadies. Anyway, listen, so our podcast, David and I, we never geek out, or we rarely geek out with our beloved instrument, the bass guitar, but that same goes for Guy Pratt. However, in this meeting, we could not resist talking shop, but I think civilians will enjoy it. Now, this is part 2 of our interview. Be sure to check out part 1. Note in this conversation, we did mention to Guy that we had interviewed legendary English singer and band leader Roger Chapman. And David, you know them from Family. You remember Family, yeah?
Absolutely. Love the band.
Okay, now Guy is a huge fan, and he mentioned to us that he'd like to have Chapo on Rockonteur, so we gave him the contact info off the air. But the thing about our interview with Chapo, David, is we can't really air the podcast because Roger was not Zoom equipped, so we had to do the interview by phone because the audio is lacking. But David, we have a major announcement to make on this podcast, and it has the one we're on now.
No, I mean, which major announcement?
Oh, that one. I'm sorry. Yes. Well, the big news, David, and this I hope is not news to you, that in 2024 you will be able to read the Notes from an Artist book in hard copy or digital format. And you and I will be putting out a tome with all the best interview bits, conversations with Ron Carter, the aforementioned Guy Pratt, Billy Wyman, Dave Swift from Jules Holland, Steve Hackett of Genesis, Richard Thompson, Ian Anderson, the very friendly band leader of Jethro Tull. Bruce Thomas from Elvis Costello and the Attractions, Larry Grenadier, Michael DeBar, and of course we're going to put the Chapo interview in there and a couple of others. So, David, that indeed is exciting news for 2024.
Absolutely. But I also am trying to figure out how AI, if Peter Jackson can do that with Get Back, perhaps we can do that with the Chapo interview, because I would really love you guys to hear that, because it was really fascinating, particularly the story about the Fillmore East. We will not go into any further details of that, but it was a funny story. But you know something else that I think was great about the Guy Pratt interview? It further validates our concept that musicians really are entrepreneurs, that do-it-yourself mentality, that I don't hear the word no matter how how many times it's said to us. I think that is something that comes to the forefront at the beginning of part 2.
Yes, Guy, if you read his book, and we certainly plug his book during the podcast, yes, you can see he was a businessman from the word go, from gravitating from being a band member to a sideman to being a comic to being an author, doing voiceovers to being an actor. So there's many, many facets to Guy Pratt, which are entrepreneurial. So, yes, that does come to the forefront of this interview. And, of course, at the end of our conversation, David, there's the Guy Pratt playlist, a very succinctly curated playlist. And really, when you look at Guy Pratt's resume, it is a top 40 UK legacy artist, greatest hits compendium.
And what's also great about it is if you do listen to part 1, the set list is completely different. That's how well-rounded and how many recordings Guy has done. So enjoy that. I won't tell you what it is because I don't have it in front of me, and it's been a week since I've actually created that. Yes, I've created it. I am the god of Guy Pratt's set list.
You are the god of hellfire. Well, I can just tell the audience member that it'll be such artists as Natalie Imbruglia, Peter Cetera, Christy McCall, Debbie Harry, Pink Floyd, Michael Jackson, his old band Icehouse. So, yes, Michael
Iggy
Hutchins.
and the Pops.
Iggy and the Pops, Toy Matinee, which is a deep, deep track you guys got to hear. Queen of Misery we played last
Queen
time.
of Misery, correct.
Okay, so there we go. So without further fondue, let's get to part 2 of Guy Pratt. And don't forget, at the end of our conversation is our Guy Pratt playlist. Bring him on, David. Here he is, Guy Pratt, part 2.
There was this thing of there were 5 bands, and if you weren't in one, you were never going to get anywhere. So it's like we were all starting bands and everything, but we didn't really know why. And by then it was someone who's 30 years old, man. When you're 14, they mean
right. They're ancient, yeah.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, it was so important. But the thing about punk, what was so brilliant about it, and it's why the 80s were the decade they were. It's got nothing to do with the music. It was the do it yourself thing. That was what it was all about in England. Was don't like the music that's out there, start a band. You don't like what's in the papers, start your own paper. It was like literally just do it yourself rather than go and work for someone. When the Buzzcocks heard about the Sex Pistols and they booked them to play at the Lesser Free Trade Hall in Manchester, you know, and they did this gig and there were 14 people at that gig. Those 14 people were Morrissey, Johnny Marr, Mick Hucknall,
Right.
Tony Wilson, Stephen Morris, Ian Curtis, you know, basically the 80s was
Right.
formed from that room.
Yeah, I was shocked that the Damned never really did well in America because that was another fake punk band, if you know what I mean.
Oh no, yeah, they were like, yeah, I mean, they were brilliant, but I know what you mean. It was like the Monkees of kind of yeah. And I say that as someone who grew up and adores the Monkees.
Well, the Clash also did help break reggae, at least in America, when they did Sandinista. And
Yeah,
that
well,
record,
that's a good thing. Yeah. No, I mean, I knew Joe, and I know Simo. That in fact, I'm wearing Paul Simone's watch.
Oh, all right.
He gave me this.
How
watch.
did you get that?
I'll tell you how. Because
Did you nick it from him? No.
No, it's a very sweet story. When I decided I wanted to do, I started trying to write a book, and I hated writing. And I thought, but I really like telling stories, as you may have gathered. And I thought, why don't I just try and telling these stories instead of writing? So I organised a members' dinner at the Groucho Club, which is this sort of, you know, general media hangout club in London.
Well, here I am again with a chance for each of our couples to win up to $10,000. And if any of them say the secret word, they'd win an extra $100. This is the word right here.
The idea is that people who have these members' dinners is that it's usually you have dinner and then someone gives a talk, usually about their cookery book, about the foods you've just eaten. But I did this and it sold out immediately. And half the people I was going to talk about came. Right. And so I was looking at my notes going, can't do that one, can't do that one, can't do that one. And then you actually think, do you know what? If you can't do it in front of them, then you can't do it. But it was terrifying and nerve-wracking, but it worked really well. Someone came from the BBC and I got invited on a radio show and then blah, blah, blah. That led to me going to Edinburgh to the festival and all that. But anyway, I was in a complete state afterwards and I went down to the bar and I was kind of like having a brandy. Paul Simonon came in. He obviously hadn't been at my thing. He'd been at something far more culturally significant that evening, obviously. And I said, oh, mate, I just did this. Oh, yeah, how'd it go? I said, it was fine. I said, do you know what I was doing for luck, Paul? Because I have John Entwistle's old watch, which I got at an auction. I've got here, which is one of the first ever digital watches. And it's by the Hughes Corporation. Funny enough. I mean, the funny thing, you can tell the time 3 times, and then you have to change all 4 batteries. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. But it was the only thing in the auction, I should point out, that was cheap. Like, there were literally like spider themed cufflinks were going for 800 quid. You know, this thing went to 180 quid, and no one noticed it. So I got it. That's what I've got it, right? I'm not a rich collector. But anyway, so I said to Paul, I was wearing John Entwistle's watch. And he said, well, if you're wearing one bass player's watch, I guess you should have another. And just took his watch off and gave it to me.
Wow. Fabulous story.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
And see, Tom, if we would have talked about watches, we never would have gotten these stories.
I'm telling you. That's the key. That's the key to a successful podcast.
That's for your other podcast. Great watches of rock and roll.
That's why we're such a success, because we don't talk about what people want to hear.
But talking about, you did session work, and David and I, of course, we've done session work as well, not as high profile. But you either get a lead sheet.
What are your high points? Give me some of your high points.
Oh, David, you have more high points than David was an Aztec 2-step. What else? I worked with John Cicada. Remember him? He was.
You would remember Robin Beck. First time.
Oh, Robin Beck.
Yeah, I was in her band. You know, the Coca-Cola commercial girl. And see, I had known her for years because I broke into studio work. Will Lee had me as his sub. So what ended up happening is he was dating Robin Beck. So all these years later, Desmond Child produces First Time. It becomes a big hit. She has to come up with an album. And then she's touring all over the continent. I think she sold about 3-4 million records.
Brilliant.
And so she had to put a band together. And so it was wonderful. I enjoyed it. We had a caterer traveling with us. How bad could it be?
Well, David,
you know
it's
that.
all about catering.
You talk about selling records, the good old days. But talking about your session work, I mean, like I said, we either have to read a chart or a lead sheet, but Madonna asked you to make a bass line that made your dick hard. How does one follow that?
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's not quite how it went. No, it was, because I mean, she was terrifying, but she was brilliant. It was, I can't remember what the song was, but
I actually auditioned for her before she was famous. And here's a Guy Pratt story. And the audition said you had to be 6 feet tall. Now I'm 5'10". This has got to be around 1980. But I still had my platforms from the 70s. So I show up to the studio. They made me read charts, and I read what was exactly on the page. It wasn't difficult. Nowadays it's called grunge, but back then it was just bad music or something. But I got the gig, and it was I think a $300 a week salary, which in 1980 was pretty good.
That's all right, yeah.
And then of course I show up to the first rehearsal with my Converse sneakers, and I'm back to being 5'10", and I got fired. So there you go. There's my Madonna story.
Wow. You actually had to be. That's extraordinary.
But it wasn't the Madonna that you played with. It wasn't the disco Madonna. But one of my favorite stories in your book is how you forgot that you had played the bass line to Like a Prayer.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I still I have a vague recollection of it. It's really weird. I remember all the other stuff really, really well because everything else was a band date, and it was this amazing man. And I was fucking terrified. You know, I know I'd been with Pink Floyd. I had this, and I'd played with kind of big guys, like Robert Palmer and stuff. But I still have this terrible imposter syndrome. I still do. I'm basically a West London punk rocker. I shouldn't really be doing any of this. But
but you're the kid with the riffs.
The kid with the riff. No, riff, singular. I only
have
riff.
One. Oh, you've got the one riff. That's it.
I used it a long time ago.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a lot. And yeah, because they were band, because the band was amazing. It was Sugarfoot Moffat, it was Jay Winding, Bruce Gage, and Pat, of course, and Bill Bottrell behind the desk. I mean, it was all amazing. And she was so good. She was so on it. She would sing a guide vocal. She would give you notes, but they were proper notes. You know, they weren't like, can you make it more purple? Or, you know, it was like proper, understandable musical things she wanted you to do or not, or more importantly, not do. And then, but Like a Prayer was just me, her, and Pat and Bill. I don't know why I wasn't there for the date. I think it might be because it's got that synth on it. They might have just been thinking that's it. There might not have been a plan to put a bass on it. Possibly, because I went in to just double some of the verse stuff. I'm playing like kind of like sort of every fourth note or something on that. But then for some reason at the end, it was just one of those, oh, let's go nuts. It's like, you know, we've got it. Just do one for fun sort of thing. And it was, and I probably don't really remember it because I obviously wasn't taking it seriously. It's like, as if I could do that. As if I could do that. You know what I mean? And then so when she invited me down to the mix because I'd come back to do the Toy Matinee album, in fact. And so I went down. She said, "Come and sit next to me." And I sat down next to her, and they had this last really loud playthrough of Like a Prayer, and I was absolutely stunned. Because it's just fucking amazing as a song. Huge hooks, yeah. And just that, and the arrangement and everything is so great. It's like there's always something to keep you interested. You're always thinking, what now? And then that bass happened at the end, and I was like, my God, that sounds like me, but it obviously isn't because that's way above my pay grade. You know what I mean? Pino gets to do that. Tony Levin gets to do that. Mark King gets to do that. I don't get to do that. Which is why I said to her, Madonna, that is the greatest record you've ever made. It's amazing. And who played bass on it? And she went, "You, Johnny!"
Anyway, I just want to thank you all for waiting. My lateness tonight is due. I don't like to be late, by the way. All right? And all you bitches who keep complaining about it can shut the fuck up.
I still think the Michael Jackson story is even more bizarre.
It was interesting. That kind of got different when he died somehow. But it was the fact that basically the long and short of it is it's hard to tell it again. But yeah, basically when I got asked to, the funniest thing about that is actually when I got the call to do it was because I had this it was this period of my life was just so insane where I'd literally done the Toy Matinee record and had to leave before the end of that because I had to fly back to Europe, do the Pink Floyd European tour where we went to Moscow and then we did the amazing gig in Venice. And then I had to fly straight back to LA to start the Robbie Robertson album. I mean, it was nuts. And then while we were doing the Robbie Robertson album, I went and did Breathless. I did Hanky Panky and those other songs for Madonna. And then one day in the studio, I get a call from Bill Bottrell. Goes, "Hey, Guy, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm kind of, what?" He said, "I really want you to come play this Michael Jackson song." And I said, "Well, okay, it's if you can be here by 6. I said, "Well, we don't usually finish till 6. So I said, I'll have to ask permission." So I said to Robbie Robertson, I said, "Hey, Robbie, listen, mate, I'm really sorry, but is there any chance I can go early tonight?" So, "Oh, why?" I said, "Well, I'd be asked to go and do a Michael Jackson session." He went, "What am I supposed to say to that?" So I went off to do this, but I said, "Well, what, why me? Why me, Bill?" And he said, "Michael heard Like a Prayer." And he really, really liked, and he wants that. I thought, oh, great. So he obviously wants full balls out octave pedal, madness. Right. And I turn up at the studio and Michael's just left. And there's this, "What about sunlight? And I was like, really? What am I supposed to do with this?" Until luckily Steve Ferroni comes in. Also, it's in the worst possible key. It's in A flat, which for an octave pedal is nothing. As a rule, you don't go below D. D is the optimum key for now. It doesn't matter because with TCs and everything now you can go to anything. Although I don't like any of the new octave pedals unless I'm doing a proper sub swell power thing. For actual octave pedal, for me it's the OC2. It's the Boss OC2. It's because you want that amount of grunge and you want that amount. And there you go.
Well, that's the 5. That one has the OC2 thing.
Yeah, but it's not an OC2. Boss were talking actually about doing a Guy Pratt edition of the OC2, but that one.
Take that, Pino.
Yeah, I know because I nicked it from him. I make no bones about it.
Everybody did.
I didn't even realize that was a bass on the record when I first heard it. Yeah.
Yes, tear your playhouse down like that. And although actually the great one is the real one is Give Blood. That's the.
Oh, yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah. But what I think it is at the time, because there was no internet, there was no. I remember when having heard Tear Your Playhouse Down, thinking, my God, that is insane. It's amazing. What is it? Sounds like a synth, but it obviously isn't. How did I find out it was an octave pedal? Do you know what I mean? Who did I ask?
Right, exactly. There were no chat
Who
rooms.
did I ask? What do I do? Going, tell me.
Yeah.
Trail of bodies around London. Tell me what that sound is.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. For me, what was when what is it? "Fool in the Rain," Led Zeppelin.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to get that sound on my bass, the solo that he was getting with the fuzz and the octave down. And that's how I figured it out.
Oh, okay. Although, do you know what? The first pedal octaver I had was the Pearl one.
Was that the trumpet one?
Pedals? The what?
Eddie Harris used with his saxophone an octave box.
Oh, okay. But no, the Pearl, what was good about the Pearl one was it had an octave down, 2 octaves down, which no one ever used, right? But it had this thing, had an octave above, which wasn't an octave above, right? It was like, nice try, guys. But it wasn't an octave above. What it was a really thin, fuzzy version of the octave you were playing, which was a really nice little thing to add in.
Oh, I bet.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but anyway, so that's where that came from. And, but yeah, so the funny thing, what I actually did on the bass line I came up, and I love the kudos I get from it, because when I think about it, it's because I was absolutely stuck. And what I've done is something, it's so completely different to like a prayer. And it's so, and you're hanging by the seat because it's all about that note, those notes being long. And so everyone, hitting an A flat and going, come on, boss, baby, don't let me down. That's a bit when the key changes to B flat, it's like, okay, that's something. But and I love the kudos. I love the kudos I've got for that because it's so it's practically smoke on the water, isn't it? Or the joke I have is, which isn't true, but the joke I used to use is what I basically did was what I did was basically the bass line from Bad, because I figured Michael would like it. He just wouldn't know why.
Well, didn't Carmine Rojas, when he did Let's Dance?
We interviewed him on it. That was based on Under My Thumb.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, that was China Girl, I think it was.
Was that China Girl?
Yeah, it was China Girl. Da 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 da. Right, he did that.
That's right. That's right.
We're talking about albums. Guy, is the album format relevant in the 21st century? I mean, we live in a streaming world.
No,
we all grew up on albums.
It's not. It's an album. We have we had the 45. The album. The albums were the length they were because it was Deutsche Grammophon worked out that that's the length of one movement of a symphony. And so because that was the format, that's what record players were made to. So we came up with this thing so we got used to this thing of the album, which then became this completely invented format where track listing was everything, where everything's about track 1, side 1. What is the last song on side 1? What is the first song on side 2? What is the last song on side 2? But basically became a play in 2 acts.
Yes.
Right? Which had to follow this arc. Then the CD came along and that was gone, right? There's no end of side 1. There's no beginning of side 2. So it's complete. I mean, it, like anything, any sort of restriction that's imposed upon you, especially as an artist, is a good thing.
Yes.
It's the very fact that's why plays are like plays. That's why films are like films. It's because these invented laws, which you then realize have to, it's good to have them. Now there's kind of no point. If you want an album to be 400 songs, it can. But that's why I found it interesting, because my son's a musician amongst a lot of the kids, that what's become their preferred format is the EP.
How old is your son?
He's 21.
Okay, all right. So EPs resonate with him, which is weird because an extended play.
Just the idea of it's not an extended play. It's 4 songs.
Okay,
do you know what I mean? EPs were for when I think essentially when people were arguing about what was going to be the B-side.
Right, or get a few extra shekels, right, for a 4 song. Yeah, interesting. Well, it's funny you mentioned the word restriction. David and I interviewed Jerry Jamot. And David and I were convinced had Jocko lived, he would have played a 6-string bass like my friend David has there. But Jerry Jamot counters that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Yeah.
And it's that the limitations of the 4-string, and when you play an extended range bass, I know you tried the 5-string at somebody's behest.
Yeah. And
the 6-string, you do see the limitations of the 4-string because, as David will tell you, on a 6-string you move more horizontally, where on a 4-string,
that's what Jack Bruce said. That's why you like 5 strings, because you go there. But if you think about it, it's also, I mean, whatever, just the top note on a jazz, right?
It's an E flat.
Yeah, which I actually play with which I actually use for the last, when I play a double, I play a chord at the end of Sourceful of Secrets. And I love that I actually play the highest note.
Oh, is that Remember a Day you do that on? There's another one. Corporal Clegg, I think, had a real high.
All right. But anyway, the point being, that note, why on earth would you need anything higher than that on a bass guitar?
Well, to be honest, the idea to me was never getting the Diary of the Hands high soloing. That was never my point. Where I started, it was twofold. My brother-in-law was Ian McDonald. And when he left Foreigner, we started a band, and he bought me a Chapman stick.
I was about to bring those up. Yeah, go on.
And Padula built me a 5-string bass because I wanted to go low.
Yeah.
But they built me a 5-string bass on a 4-string neck, and I couldn't get my hands in there.
Of course not.
So, and frankly, the way I look at this is, okay, so this is the D, okay? That's the D 2 octaves above. I don't normally go all the way up here.
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely. I'm not saying there's no place for it, but I'm just saying with everything that with Jacko's facility, I just don't think he, in the same way as I don't think Hendrix ever would have gone beyond a Strat.
Interesting. You don't think he would have gotten into guitar synthesizers or?
Maybe, but that stuff's all outboard. It's still,
true.
It doesn't really matter in the same way as, I mean, look at David Gilmour. I mean, no one's done more to expand the horizons of what a guitar can sound like than him, but it's still the Black Strat.
But it's also interesting that Jack Bruce was playing a Fender 6 with Cream, and it's like,
that's right. That's
kind of bizarre, you know?
But yeah, the Chapman stick. So that was the other thing. So in the 80s, of course, and the Chapman stick was seen as like, of course, Alfonso was playing one, Tony Levin was playing one, and I was thinking like, oh my god, I'm going to have to learn this. I'm going to have to learn this thing, obviously. So I nearly bought one, and I suddenly thought, you know what? I've just done those. I've just did those 4 years in my bedroom. I don't know if I can go back and do them again, because that's what it was going to be. And then I realized that actually all the guys, especially Tony, it's like, he's only playing 2 strings on it, really.
That's right. That's right.
It's like,
do you know what really was my decision to get rid of the damn thing? Besides, of course, how many years it would take to master it, I didn't want to stand up with the goddamn thing stuck in my pants. You know?
No, exactly. It's a great thing. And it's, I mean, apparently Tony was telling me a few years back that he's transcribed Stravinsky's Firebird for the stick.
That sounds like Tony.
Yeah, so it's like, well, I was never going to do that. So like, then I guess you needed a stick.
And of course, we talked with Trey. Trey's using that war guitar, which is, even more, intense than the Chapman stick is.
I like playing bass.
Yeah, I hear you.
Got less and less interested in any of the technical stuff as I got older, and I've just realized I'm not that guy. Yeah. I'm not Pete. I'm not Tony. I'm never going to be. And that's fine. And people want that, they can get them. Me, they can get me.
That's it.
But I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on, the latest burst of technology now, AI, and the new Beatles single using AI? Your thoughts?
I just don't know. Don't know. It's a lovely idea. What is interesting is there's been a couple of people who've done this on YouTube where people have done a version of that song recorded like the Beatles in '64.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that one. Yeah.
That sounds like a Beatles song.
Right.
This sounds like a John Lennon song with Paul sticking a bit on it. A lot of it's just that vocal and everything. It's like, that's John Lennon. That's not Beatles John Lennon. That's John Lennon John Lennon.
Mm-hmm. And George didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Exactly, and that modern compression. It's because the thing is, this, the thing with Beatles records is they've always got exactly the right amount of things going on. There's never an ounce of fat. There's never too much, or there's never too little. Like George's parts would be, especially on the earlier things, it would just be the perfect, concise amount of notes that's glotted exactly in this gap. This has just got too much going on, and with that modern compression, which just pushes everything at you, I kind of find it a hard listen. And there's a bit of me that goes, I feel churlish almost, because I loved Get Back so much. I watched that 3 times. I could not get enough of it. The humanizing of it, and that made everything so magical. This doesn't add to, that was adding, and that's the AI of that making that possible. Yes. Give me that. Bring me anything that's going to bring stuff alive that's already there. I personally didn't need this record. If it's nice for Paul, if it's nice for Ringo, then great.
Tom actually said something very interesting to me regarding the early Beatle record. Yes, you're allowed every now and then, you know. He said, if you really listen to the Beatle records, when the vocal's going on, nothing else is really going on. There's no twiddly bits here and there.
That's
There's
what I mean.
vocal,
Absolutely. Not
solo,
an ounce of fat. That's right. And George's parts fitted right in the gaps.
Exactly. And that's what you're talking about. That's exactly what's happening with Now and Then, because there's too much going on at all times.
Paul used to save his best bass playing for the others' songs.
And he worked on his parts afterwards, we learned later.
You know, like the bass on something. Yeah. You know, I mean, come on.
You give
that's his what's going on.
Hello, Goodbye is probably his greatest homage to Johann Sebastian Bach.
Right.
It's so fugue-like. It's a beautiful line. It's great.
And it's very interesting to find out when those expanded editions came out and they showed unseen pictures from the studio. All went in and overdubbed on a jazz bass, a left-handed.
That's right. Yeah, he had a jazz. Yeah.
Yeah.
He hated the.
But that's the other thing I love, because that's the other thing I love is how, you know, the sheer fetishization that goes on of the Beatles' gear and their recording and this guitar and you did this and this amp and then they didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Well, what's that? Yours a guitar in it? All right, there's one. That's in an amp. I'll turn that up. You know, they didn't care.
Well, did you see? You love Big Get Back. Did you see the scene where John Lennon says, "Oh yeah, I got a pedal steel on Regent Street or whatever. Oh yeah, I found the cheapest one I could get. Here it is." Yeah, you think John Lennon would buy the 5 of the best ones? No, he's a Liverpool working class. He bought the cheapest one.
Paul's Rickenbacker. Paul's Rickenbacker. It's like, well, the nuts. I don't know. The nut. There's something wrong with the nut. It's like, and you're Paul McCartney from the Beatles. Which if there's something wrong with the nut of your Rickenbacker, something can be done about it.
Yeah. But again, I think also they looked at it. Look, they had 4 to 8 tracks to work with, so they didn't want to gunk up the tracks.
Yeah, they didn't know the idea. It's the same thing. The same reason that people used to strip down and repaint guitars, paint stupid things on them, put silly things. Who knew there was no tomorrow? You know, everything was just, all being made up as you went along. So
if you remember, Ringo was going to open up a hair salon.
There's a place where images are made. Diane's on 57th Street. We weave hair as naturally as it grows on your head. Diane's exclusive interlock method is so lifelike, most clients can't believe it.
Oh, Diane.
Yeah. But, Jamont had something there. I mean, obviously he did the iconic Jocko video. So I guess, he got to talk to Jocko a little more deeply than we did. But he said Jocko would have never gone past the 4-string. And there's probably a lot of credibility to that.
Do you think that because Jocko's sound, to me, is still, it's so space age and modern and high tech, and it was just him. So it's like, what else was he going to do? He was already, he had the future in his fingers.
It has to do with the fact that with Jocko's bass playing, it's a penultimate bass player, but his real quality is his compositions. He is a brilliant composer, just like Mingus, great bass player.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you think Mingus, do you think bass player? Do you think composer? You think composer, and so you think that with Jocko, 3 Views of a Secret. Oh God, Portrait of Tracy. Who would have thought? Outside of maybe Percy Jones, who would have thought about it?
What is on your bucket list? What do you have to do before you leave this mortal coil?
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, I keep ticking boxes. Like I said, I did a thing with Planty. It's like there's always like last year I got a call from Pete Townsend. I went and spent 3 days working with him, and it's like that's it's like the boxes keep getting ticked. So funny thing is that there's only one person who I'd really like to play with, but it's a total catch-22, which is that I would love to do something with Peter Gabriel. But one of the things that's so key to me, but if I do something with Peter Gabriel, then it means Tony Levin isn't doing it. And I kind of always want it to be Tony Levin, so that in a way, I guess I don't want to play with Peter Gabriel. Because
we know where he lives. We know he lives upstate New York. We could lock him in his house. Dave,
you could. I got asked to go into a summer school when I was living in Brighton. I got asked the BIM, the music college there. They said, listen, we're doing this, we do this summer school. And that was actually much cooler than the usual, because it's people who come from all over the world, paid a lot of money for this little thing. They said, so will you come in and just for a day? I went, yeah, sure. So I went in for a day. They went, okay, as we got Guy Pratt here, one of the world's leading exponents of the octave pedal. I went, oh, okay, great. So get the bass out. Okay, we're probably going to have a look at Like a Prayer, first song. So today, turn to page 16 in your books. We're going to be doing Sledgehammer. What? And they start things, and the funny thing, I don't even really read music, right? So I'm just sitting there going, all right, and they're doing Sledgehammer. And then I suddenly notice, actually, I think they've got a note wrong. And where's the boom?
Right.
There's that great thing with the 9, they get, right? And they're doing it as a minor third. Right? And I'm thinking, that's wrong. And I go, excuse me, sorry, I heard something. I think you've got a note wrong there. And you go, really? Really? Well, that's how it is in the book. That's how we got it. And you know, whenever anything like that happens, you sort of go from being thinking, is it? Am I wrong? Is it? Have I got? And I thought, no, I'm pretty sure. Why don't I ask Tony? So I think it's about 10 o'clock in the morning in New York now. So I emailed Tony Levin. Hi, Tony. Listen, really sorry to bother you, mate, but I'm in this music school thing, and listen, we're doing Sledgehammer, and they're doing, you know that that feel you do. They've got it as a minor third, but it's definitely a 9, isn't it? And he goes, oh, hi, Guy. Nice to hear from you. I goes, it says, oh, I don't know. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. And I go, what do you mean it's a long time ago? This is Sledgehammer. This is a career-defining moment for you. So I'm in the middle of Space Girls. I'm now having an email argument with Tony Levin.
Oh, that's great.
The back. It's very good. Guy, just tell them it's whatever you tell them. I said it's whatever you said it is. All right. So I have this brilliant thing. My next stop goes, hi. So yeah, I've just spoken to Tony Levin. So they definitely got their money's worth that day.
Oh,
Yeah.
outrageous. Okay, so on our show, obviously, we have to do a Guy Pratt playlist, and there are quite a few on Spotify. Did you ever investigate any of them?
No? What do you mean? No,
All right.
Playlist?
People
there's Guy Pratt.
Guy Pratt playlist. Like, here's some of the key tracks. You'd say yay or nay. Stay Close Tonight with Ice House.
Absolutely.
Taking the Town, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Okay.
one. Discipline of Love. Sledgehammer, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
With the minor third in there. The Right Stuff in Limbo with Brian Ferry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Kiss and Tell.
That's still one of my proudest moments.
All right. One of the fabulous live version of Money. I think that's where you guys go into the reggae groove. Yes?
Oh, yeah. That will haunt me to my grave.
Certainly, we have to represent Nick Mason. We have to do Lucifer Sam and see Emily play.
Oh, superb. Yeah.
Okay. What else have we got? We've got Walking Down Madison with Christy McCall.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
That's a good one. Hold Back the Dawn, Robbie.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
All right. Queen of Misery, Toy Matinee.
Thank you. Yeah. I'd also put Last Plane Out on that.
Okay. How about Ain't No Doubt with Jimmy Nail?
Yeah.
Okay, can we get Murder on the Dance Floor with Sophie Ellis? Come on, that's a killer. You got to have that one. Loved that's you on Iggy Pop and Debbie Harry. Did you ever?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Were you in the studio when they did that?
No, I wasn't, annoyingly. Although I did write and produce a song for Debbie, a thing called Communion.
What else have we got here? Let's see. Loop De Louie. And North Star. You're not on North Star. No, that was Tony Levin. Excuse me. I don't know how these playlists get mixed up. Okay. All right. Any other Guy gems you'd like us to add in there?
Oh God, probably. The Flame by Icehouse I like, and Cross the Border by those two Icehouse ones I like. What else is there?
You played on a Peter Cetera album. Why would a great bass player like Peter Cetera ask Guy Pratt to play on his record?
Do you know what? That is very funny. I always forget that. That was like it was because Pat Leonard was producing, and I was coming through town with Pink Floyd the first time. This was my first leg, my first couple of months with Pink Floyd. When I was 25, I was a fucking asshole. Do you know what I mean? I'd lost the plot completely. I'd been given the keys to the toy cupboard, and I was off. And he invited me and David. And David's David's been reborn stadium god, and we both, and he just comes in and goes, whoa! All over everything. And then I turn up. I probably hadn't been to bed for about 3 days or something, and it's just plugged the octave pedal in. In fact, I was so off my nut. I remember at one point when Pat's just telling me how the songs go. I've started playing already, because Pat always had this thing that I have to play before I've even heard the song. He's just said, I'm not allowed to listen to the song. I have to play straight away because something usually happens. And so I'm playing away, and he's still actually telling me what bit's what. And he goes, okay, solo. I go, right, and, whoa, and off I go. But what it meant was, no, that's the solo, not you. So if you want to hear, and it is, I haven't listened to it for years, but I'm kind of too horrified to, but that is me just being off the chart.
All right, that's we got to lead off with that. Would I like you to go ahead more?
That was before Like a Prayer. What, Like a Prayer?
Of course, obviously.
Yeah.
Hang on, St. Christopher with Sir Rod. That was you.
Was that okay?
Yeah,
all right. I can't remember that. Shit! I just remember something.
You did some work with Michael Hutchins too. Let me show
Gary
you.
Moore. Yeah, I can't remember which ones I'm on that album.
Oh.
I Have Found My Love in You by Gary Moore. I like that.
Okay.
One. It's nice
yeah,
great.
Of R&B.
All right, very good. And Guy, explain to us this.
And Restless Heart by Whitesnake.
Oh wow! Of course. Well, one of my favorite guests on Rockonteur is David Coverdale.
He's like our paterfamilias. He's like, we love Dave. We've had him on 3 times now.
And you should have him on more. I think, you have a wonderful description of what you thought rock stars were. I think, let me quote you here. They never left Switzerland or wherever it was. They lived in their solid gold ski lodges atop mountains of foie gras, surrounded by waterfalls of Dom Perignon. Now that to me is David Coverdale when I see him.
He literally lived on Champagne Drive in Reno.
Oh, okay.
That's literally the name of his street.
One of my favorite guests, and of course, and the recent Johnny Marr one was also very, very good.
Yeah.
So tell us about your rig there. Will you have this? Will you just have sound baffling on the side? Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is just a little. It's actually a portable vocal booth. I had a bit of my studio built to fit it perfectly, but rather than standing up, I've had a desk put in, monitor and everything, and I love it. This is my little cozy.
Yeah,
corner.
And you have the Samson mic here, the same Samson mic.
Samson mic here. Yeah. Although I've had to get I've got a cloud lifter for it because they're so incredibly low level. I recommend the cloud lifter.
Okay, we'll try that. And we, David, what do we edit on Audacity? Yeah.
That's right. We've been doing this on Audacity.
Instead of often doing this, because the way we do Rockonteurs is we all record our audio locally on Logic. And then just send it in. But I didn't do that. Sorry.
We do it all on Zoom. Then I bump it into Audacity, which is basically Logic. And I tweak it, get rid of the ums and ahs and the you-knows and that kind of stuff. And then Tom watches it or listens to it on the radio because I've had more than my fair share by the time I'm done editing.
Yeah. It sounds great on the radio.
And I'm such a control freak. I don't want anyone else to edit it because at least I can get rid of my stupid comments.
Yeah. But it's also, the world of podcasting is so very, very crowded now. And I listen to podcasts exclusively. How did you guys get the word out? I mean, I remember it coming up. I didn't know you had a podcast until Spotify suggested it to me. So if you knew, because it knows what my listening habits are. And
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, we bunged it on our socials, and again, and then it kind of got through. Through me, it leaks into Pink Floyd world.
Right. Of course. There you go.
That's a pretty good one. And then spanned out world. So we got quite broad base there. No.
Right. Yeah, where they have very, very.
But it's
deep
like,
sound
we're compared to if you want to make money out of podcasts, it's ghosts and true crime.
Right, and Joe Rogan, yes, he has all the podcasts.
Yeah, and horrific far right opinions.
Well, we can do that, David. I mean,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, the world go to hell in a handbasket, and
we're all going to die.
Up to the totalitarians to win this battle
with pink strings. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for being our guest.
Oh, it's been really good fun. It's lovely talking to you both.
All right, and we got lots of great tips on gear and all that other stuff. This is a really geeky interview day.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I could have gone geek. I love because I don't get to go geeky.
Well, that's good. Well, when you need a geek,
I'm not a proper geek, really. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I used to kind of pretend to be really into all that stuff, and then you realize you're kind of pretending. I mean, I still love it. I can't set up a bass. I don't really know about that stuff. Yeah.
Well, the less you know, the more credibility you have in the podcast world. Anyway, thanks for being a guest. We'll let you know when this airs.
Yeah, please do.
All that stuff. We'll send you files. And what else, David? And now David and I hope to be in London next year, so we'll come knock on
let me
your
know.
door. We know where you live.
Absolutely.
All right. All right, be
A
well.
pleasure.
Take care, guys.
Cheers. All the very best.
Bye-bye,
to you.
guys.
Cheers.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that concludes our first conversation with Guy Pratt. We hope to have him back on the show, David. And, of course, we hope to have his Rockonteur sidekick on in 2024, Gary Kemp. Now, David, there's something about the holidays you would like to say to our listeners.
Absolutely. I want to let our listener know that we really like the fact that you're listening on Christmas Day, because this is December 25th, Christmas Day, and we want to let you know happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we will see you next year.
And let me just say, Feliz Navidad, and keep your hand in your pants and reach for the stars. This is Notes from an Artist.